to please my darling #1 grandson, I am now going to read some recollections from my childhood. Actually, I'm going to write a whole story sometime if I live long enough. I am the #1 grandmother, the only one, and at the prompting of my beloved #1 grandson, I've started to write some of my recollections of my long ago childhood. And this one was about the library. I was talking to somebody, and we were talking about how we love books. And I remembered long ago I called it the library, and it must have been not too long after the Mariette, the mother, and those left, and with Uncle Pearl. I was 8 years old. I don't remember much about that day, except I hung on to Mariette's skirts and said, "Don't leave me, Mama." But I don't remember the rest of it. I'd had other traumatic events in my life before that. But not to fear. God can take every event in our lives and weave them into a beautiful tapestry of the purposes for us. Now, back to our library story. My dad had rented a small house for us in Cosmopolis. It was on a tree-lined street across the road from across the street from a, I remember it well, it was 2-story white stucco grade school. I went there, I think, just one season. So it does sound like a perfect small town scene, but it really wasn't. This was in the middle of the Great Depression, you know, probably it was 1931 that year. And most of the neighborhoods were not picture perfect in those days. The sidewalks were dusty and in disrepair, the houses as well. But it was summertime, and my daddy went to work at Bishop's Lumber Mill early every morning, and that left my brother Alan and myself to our own resources. And this morning, I had a plan. And my plan was go to the library. But anyway, the cement sidewalk was hot under my feet. I remember it. And it seemed such a long, long way to the library. That was my destination that day. When I got there, this was amazing. I'd never seen such a wonderful place. I didn't know there were libraries, I guess. And as I walked through the doors into that, you know, how a library smells, and that cool, dim quietness of that it was just in the children's library downstairs. But I entered I entered into a land long ago. That must have been 1931. And I entered into a land which I have never left. Picture me in the library. The shelves were full of books. How amazing. And I love the smell and feel of it all. That day I chose from the Twin series. This was about twins in every land, and there did follow a long line about dog stories, horse stories, pioneer stories on that during that summer. Well, I hardly dared to believe that you could really take those books home, but I did. I checked them out and ran all the way home to begin my adventure. And so that was a good summer, the library summer. I also remember that was the time when I said to myself, when I grow up, I'm going to be a writer. The end. That's it.
That's good, Grammy. I like your story.
Yeah, well, next time I'm going to write about...
Is that on all the white papers and the yellow papers?
Huh?
That story's from both the white papers and the yellow papers, or do you have two stories there?
Well, there's the story about my stained glass window, and there's a little account about Aberdeen.
You want to read the Aberdeen one too?
Okay, Aberdeen. In those days, oh, that's not the right page.
Oh, I think that came off the back. Or so this is tell the camera what this story's about.
This one is about Aberdeen, my hometown. I was actually born in Kalispell, Montana, and when my mother had left, my dad brought my brother Alan and me out to Aberdeen, and we had Mariette and her husband with us, and I lived there that was probably the late 1920s till 1945. Mm-hmm. Aberdeen was a mill town in those days that had at least 6 huge mills, and many small ones and other outfits that operated. And it was situated in Gray's Harbor, which is on the coast, not very far from the ocean, in fact. And the Wishkah River flowed down through the valley into the harbor there. Cosmopolis wasn't much. It still isn't much. It was you probably notice I have a speech handicap. That's called old age. Cosmopolis was a small, in those days, just scattered out, I think, mostly residential, residential areas, and it was on the other side of the river, across the bridge from the main town, and the road that proceeded through Cosmopolis went out to the beaches, Westport, and all those communities that in decades recently have become very popular as tourist places, fishing places and tourist places. It wasn't in my day. I think I only went to the ocean once, and as I remember, it was raining like it usually does, and people were. It was in the Depression. People were busy making a living, as they say, putting food on the table. We didn't have a car. My dad didn't do those kinds of things, so we didn't go to the beach. Aberdeen in those days, though, had many saloons. The Skid Row down there on Heron Street, we called them beer halls. Nowadays, they don't have saloons. They serve alcohol in all the restaurants and hotels, in clubs, in the grocery stores, so they don't need saloons. Mr. Bishop had kept his small mill, this Bishop's mill, running all through the Depression and beyond into the 1950s, I think. And so I was not personally aware that there was a depression going on. My dad worked there actually till he was 65, and so far as I knew, times were normal. Most people did not have much. We did not have much. I had, a couple dresses that I wore to school. My dad, I remember when I was little, he would wash and starch and iron my little dresses for me every week. Well, most people didn't have much, and we had less because of my dad's drinking problem. This was a payday drinking problem and a holiday drinking problem. He wasn't every day, and he was very responsible. He always paid his bills and saw that we had food, and the rent was paid. However, things were very different, and from now, But in those days, we didn't have street gangs. We didn't have drug addictions. We didn't have the welfare system. We didn't have age-dependent children. I'm sure they would have taken us out of the home. We didn't have unemployment compensation. We didn't have subsidized housing or recovery centers that I knew anything about. Of course, drinking was fairly common, I think. And we knew about the bums, you know, the herd of the bums and the railroad that traveled the rails. Actually, they were fathers and sons. They were looking for work all across the country. And the alcohol problem had a huge effect on my young life. Period. End of story.
You want to end that story on a sad note like that?
Well, I haven't written any more down. I am 86. There are many, many stories to write.
You're not 86. Are you 86, Grandma?
I'm 86.
You look like you're 65.
Oh, I wish I was. Well, I don't want to have to learn again everything I've learned since.
No, but it's important that you start teaching everything that you know.
Yeah, I'm willing to do that.
If you haven't done so already.
Oh, yeah, but most people won't listen to me.
We're listening right now.
What do you want me to teach you about?
Huh? Oh, I love the lessons that you put, the stories you're putting down here, and the history that you've recorded. Because that's how we.
I've been going to do it since those library days.
I know.
But
You're now becoming the great writer that you always aspired to be.
Yeah, I never had time to do it, so I never did it much, except write letters to people.
Well, you always write great letters.
I'm glad you appreciate them. I'm going to write you one too when you go home.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
You're going to shut it off now, or what do you want to do?
Well, I'll end for now. But I like, if you want to do this again and want to write some more stories down, I'll come back and record them.
Well, I've got my stained glass window, and I've got the autumn of my life. That's just a little. I got a drawer full of little things, but.
Do you want to read one of those too?
No.
Okay. Will you want to read one of those again maybe next time?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll come back up here and you can read me those two, plus any others you've written down.
Okay.
Is that okay?
My next story is going to be Christmas.
Christmas? Well, we'll come back. I'll be either next weekend or the weekend after, and I can record.
You need to have some sad stories in this.
Well, there's got to be some Christmas stories in there too. I want to hear.
My Christmases were not nice.
Okay. Well, you can tell a combination of stories. You can tell for Christmas stories. You can tell Christmas stories from your childhood. Maybe a couple Christmas stories from Raisin, Alan, Trish, and Scott.
The good Christmases started when I found the Lord and the little mission. Those were wonderful.
So when I come back, maybe you can tell me a story before you met the Lord, and a Christmas story after you met the Lord, and then some Christmas stories raising your kids, and some Christmas stories raising your number one grandson, and your grandkids. How about that?
That's a good one.
Is that a good plan?
That's going to be the good times.
Okay, so that next edition will be Christmas stories with Grandma.
May I introduce my cat the next time? Polly the cat, not that.
Is that the one I was holding or the other one?
No. She's hiding, so we won't.
Oh, okay. Maybe next time then.
Yeah, maybe next time. You guys got to dash along.
We're going to go.
If you're going to really go to that tonight.
Do you want this on your table over there? Or
that's
is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to plug your fan back in here.
Okay. That's very important. I just paid a lot of money to have that stove checked, and
I wouldn't.
I think there's something.
I wouldn't dream of it, Grandma. I'll put it back to where you had. What number?
70.
70. Is it the remote for this thing?
Yep, it's a remote for the stove.
For the stove, okay.
Just the stove. It's a new remote and machine down there.
A blower. I see the old one is still here.
Yeah, he took that off.
Do you need to get rid of that one?
Yeah. Would you like to have it?
Well, if it's broken, no, Grandma will just throw it away for you.
Good.
Okay, does it kick on automatically, or what does it do?
Let's see.
It's at
Has
70.
to
Let's see.
get to, when they're both the same.
The little pilot light's going right now, but I don't see it kicking on.